Good evening, I'm Eric Young. Tonight on Prime News, anger over the flop of a solo album led AC/DC drummer Phil Rudd to threaten to kill a former bodyguard. The inquest into the deaths of two Dunedin children killed by their father hears police ignored previous threats against them. And the other side of Anzac Day, the Gallipoli cemetery dedicated to the Turks who sacrificed themselves to save their country. A front moving up the South Island weakens as it reaches the North Island tomorrow.
This is Prime News.
Anger over the failure of a solo album led AC/DC drummer Phil Rudd to threaten to kill.
Hello, with high pressure sitting to the north, a pretty good looking day for the northern parts of the country. Further south there's been a front into the picture. That front will be around tomorrow across parts of the South Island. Then we bring in a big high that just sits in place, brings in some very mild air, but settled conditions as we run our way through the week. All the details on that. A mild week coming up right now at 6 o'clock.
I don't want him dead, and I don't know if he's alive.
A New Zealander's anguish after her son is killed while fighting for ISIS in Syria. She tells One News who she blames.
Tributes and terror threats atop of the agenda as John Key and the Australian Prime Minister honour the Anzacs.
No smooth sailing for Team New Zealand after more bad news. Will it sink its America's Cup hopes?
And tonight, Mr. Ringo Starr!
And a Beatles reunion as Paul McCartney joins Ringo Starr for a sing-along. So what's the occasion?
Kia ora, good evening. A heartbroken New Zealand woman whose son was reportedly killed while fighting for ISIS says her boy wasn't a terrorist.
A win for farmers and consumers. Australia and Korea's new trade deal.
A family's unspeakable grief, the terror of Aleppo under fire from barrel bombs.
And a mercy mission with a difference. Trapped miners refuse to be rescued.
This is SBS World News with Anton Enos and Janice Peterson.
Australia's economy could be boosted by as much as $650 million a year once a free trade agreement between Australia and South Korea.
Unlikely allies, the US and Iran in talks as ISIS militants prepare to march on Baghdad.
If there's something constructive that can be contributed by Iran, we are open to any constructive process here.
Federal Parliament passes the Abbott government's levy on high-income earners. Deadly tornadoes cut a swathe through the US state of Nebraska. And a hat-trick amid a German goal blitz at the World Cup. Good evening, Ian Henderson with ABC News. Iraqi government forces have begun their campaign to push back the ISIS insurgents rampaging through the country.
Tonight, one man's destructive rampage down in Ipswich Street. 10 cars wrecked and 3 people injured.
A 6-year-old girl found dead in her north side home, her father being questioned on the Gold Coast.
A new Chief Justice for Queensland, Tim Carmody's successor, to be announced shortly.
And the end of a troubled career at the Suns for star Harley Bennell.
This is 10 Eyewitness News. First at 5 with Georgina Lewis and Lachlan Kennedy.
Good evening. A man is in custody tonight following a demolition rampage for 3 kilometres down an Ipswich street. He wrecked at least 10 vehicles before bystanders made a dramatic citizen.
Tonight, shocking details as a WA teenager admits killing his baby son.
Fire threatens homes in Baldivis, the 3rd time in under a month.
Tony Abbott's new war on terror. Tough changes to keep Australia safe as a militant group threatens deadly attacks at Westfield shopping centres.
And 4 Oscars each for Birdman and the Grand Budapest Hotel as the stars shine in Hollywood.
from the studios of 7 Perth, Rick Arden and Susanna Carr.
Good evening, welcome to 7 News. A teenage boy has pleaded guilty to killing his newborn son. It happened in Bunbury last year when the boy was just 15.
Tonight, the Parramatta shooting. The family and the Premier paid tribute to the victim. But who helped the teenage terrorist? The doctor who came to the rescue after a hit and run in Bondi. The Cowboys play it cool while the Broncos turn tourist as the fans gather for tonight's grand final showdown. Sydney Swelters, we reveal the cleanest beaches and rivers to escape the heat. And the sweetest victory. The Wallabies send England crashing out of the Rugby World Cup.
This is 9 News with Peter Overton.
Good evening. A kind, gentle and loving man. That's how a devastated family has described Curtis Cheng, the police worker brutally gunned down in Parramatta.
On 5 News, Rolf Harris gives evidence for the first time at his sex abuse trial. He describes himself as touchy-feely but denies assaulting young girls. Also, Nick Clegg refuses to quit as polls show he could be in danger of losing his seat at next year's general election. Feeling alone? Go online. Pensioners urged to use the internet to fight against loneliness.
We keep in touch like that 3 or 4 times a week with my daughter Skyping, and it's like her being in the same flat with me. It's fantastic.
And is this the food of the future? We test drive the machine that prints fruit. Welcome to 5 News. I'm Emma Crosby. He's a man who for 5 decades has been used to entertaining his audiences. Today, though, Rolf Harris took on an altogether more serious role as he began giving evidence at his indecent assault trial.
The EU is accused of a monumental failure of compassion as more migrants die in the Mediterranean. More drownings off Greece, while Italy and Malta launch rescue missions for 400 more. As some of this weekend's 900 victims are brought ashore, the UN criticises European leaders.
Everything that is happening in the Mediterranean right now is horrific. They're not given any food before they set out. They have no idea how to navigate a boat.
Also tonight, Sturgeon says her SNP would make a UK government stronger, but rules out the Conservatives.
The British 14-year-old questioned over an alleged terror plot in Australia.
This is ITV News at 6:30 with Mary Nightingale and Alistair Stewart.
Good evening. There is growing pressure on Europe to act to stop migrant boats sinking in the Mediterranean.
A Labour peer won't stand trial for over 20 allegations of child sexual abuse because he's suffering from dementia. The Crown Prosecution Service says Greville Janner is unfit to appear in court. The police react with anger on behalf of alleged victims.
Most, if not all, of those people are really, really upset. They're struggling to come to terms with the decision that has been made.
The CPS admit they made mistakes and could have brought charges against the former Leicester MP back in the 1990s. Also tonight, police find the body of the missing student Karen Buckley on farmland near Glasgow. A man has been arrested. The owner of Express Newspapers, Richard Desmond, donates £1 million to UKIP. Pressure grows on the EU to help the migrants as they pour into Italy, 900 just today, and more feared dead. And England build a commanding lead against the West Indies in the first test in Antigua.
On BBC London, the tax billions leaving London for other parts of the UK. We ask who's fighting the capital's corner. And caught on camera the moment a bus crashes after its driver loses control.
Good evening. No charges are to be brought against the former Labour MP, Lord Janner, who's been accused of sexually abusing children over a period of 30 years. The Crown Prosecution Service said the evidence against him was extremely...
Good evening, I'm Judy Woodruff. On the NewsHour tonight, the U.S. Defense Department ends its program to train Syrian rebels in the fight against the Islamic State. Then, chaos on Capitol Hill. Republicans scramble to find someone to lead the House of Representatives. Mark Shields and David Brooks are here to analyze another very full week of news, plus a very different political fight over letting dogs run free in a national park.
People love their dogs like their children. My family, we don't do things without the dog. We don't go to the movies because you can't bring the dog. I moved to San Francisco because I think of it as a progressive place and very dog-friendly.
All that and more on tonight's PBS NewsHour. A rising chorus of Republican voices in the U.S. House of Representatives urged Paul Ryan today to run for Speaker and heal a badly divided...
The state of emergency expands in California. A ferocious new wildfire explodes from 400 acres to 40,000 overnight, destroying homes and injuring firefighters. Breaking news from Phoenix, 3 so-called highway shooting copycats under arrest. Dramatic developments in Europe's migrant crisis. Germany overwhelmed, tightens its border, dozens drown off Greece. A new CBS News Battleground poll shows Ben Carson gaining ground on Donald Trump. And he has a lot more on his plate than most 16-year-olds, including his own restaurant.
If the question is why start early, there's also the question why would I wait?
This is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening, I'm Don Daler with a Western edition of the broadcast. A new, incredibly fast-moving wildfire in Northern California is scorching land at a rate of speed fire officials have not seen in...
Tonight, the breaking news, the candidate dropping out. Governor Scott Walker is now out of the race for president. And the uproar this evening about another candidate. Ben Carson saying the U.S. should not elect a Muslim president. Should faith matter? Coming to America less than 24 hours now until Pope Francis arrives. Tonight, security is unprecedented. After that moment in Cuba, the arrests, and what the Pope gave Fidel Castro. The ABC News exclusive tonight for the first time one-on-one with that county clerk who refused to issue marriage licenses to gays. Her new words right here tonight.
Would you do anything differently?
Baby Joe, the dramatic moments inside that courtroom today after tens of millions studied that sketch. And the invisible danger in so many homes. A massive explosion. Tonight, 3 important tips for every homeowner.
This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and we begin tonight with 2 major headlines in the race for president. First, the quickly changing landscape just moments ago.
Tonight, the flag fury explodes in South Carolina and a dramatic turn late today from the governor.
It's time to move the flag from the Capitol grounds.
This as President Obama stuns many by using the N-word in a frank discussion about racism in America. A major break in the manhunt for 2 escaped murderers after weeks without a trace. Have authorities finally found their hiding place? We're on the front lines in the fight against ISIS in Iraq, not with the Americans, but with the militias backed by Iran, as bitter adversaries fight a common enemy. And swift action. Apple changes its tune in a hurry after one of the most powerful women in the entertainment world takes a stand over music and money. Nightly News begins right now.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening. In a state still reeling from the massacre of 9 black worshipers, the effort to remove from the South Carolina state capitol grounds a racially charged symbol wrapped in a painful history gained a powerful voice today.